I believe that our self-worth was directly tied to our net worth. And I tried for so long to build a career and make a bunch of money and do the hustle game in the corporate world because I felt like the more money in my bank account, the more successful and fulfilling my life was. And then as I got older, I realized that's not really what's true. What's the actual definition of wealth is happiness and abundance. And abundance isn't just financial abundance, it's opportunities, it's people, it's places, it's experiences. So I'm
Sitting on the
wealthy,
beach doing your
even
work.
if my bank account, yeah, yeah, I am so wealthy, even if my bank account doesn't necessarily reflect other people's versions of wealth. And so, and I bring this story of the millionaire retreat or whatever because this was just like 2 days ago where I'm sitting here crying because I'm thinking I don't have anything to offer a group of millionaires. And I dissected it and I realized
Okay, so welcome to You Are the Medicine. I'm here with Layla, and I've forgotten your last name.
it's Evans.
Evans. Oh, that's funny. That's my maiden name. Um, okay, so obviously I'm dubbing this in because the background has very much changed. I'm using a Zoom background. I, in my excitement, neglected to give Layla a proper introduction so that you all could benefit from her offering to the world and her energy more so than this episode is prepared to offer. So, Layla and I actually met at through a project of a collaboration, a what's the word, anthology of stories of 42 different women, uh, of which we are two, who are ordinary women who overcame extraordinary odds and extraordinary circumstances, rather. The book is called Still Perfectly, I'm Perfect. And it explores how, in a number of ways, women shifted their mindset in order to become their own medicine. So, very much ties in with what this channel is about. And it is available for purchase, and I'll put that in the show notes. So bear with me also with some other technical snafus. I forgot to pin people on the Zoom call recording, so it's going to bounce back and forth. And I'm choosing to give myself plenty of compassion while I'm working through the process of learning all things podcast and allowing myself to just go with the flow. And after all, who's looking for perfection? We have plenty of that in the world. Perfection. I'm just a regular person who's sharing her own journey and the journey of others in a way that brings more of us into the light of understanding how powerful our thoughts are. So, having said that, good segue into introducing Layla. She's actually a mindset coach, and I'm going to read the description that she shared with me. She is a dark feminine embodiment coach who helps emotionally exhausted women stop abandoning themselves without burnout or self abandonment through dark feminine embodiment and cognitive reframing. She and I have had conversations in the past on balancing and embracing your feminine energy. She and I are both on a traveling spiritual journey of self healing and helping others to do the same. Um, and in that uh, frame of thought, she is also a travel agent who hosts retreats, and she's got one coming up to Ireland. Been on my bucket list for a while, and she's not only gonna she's already put together a package for people to experience all the coolness of Ireland, as well as her own multiple modalities that help a person to embody more of that self love, self healing, presence, um, emotional well being. And so that's coming up in September, I believe. Double check the link. I'll put that in the show notes. And enjoy. If you feel inspired, please share the show. And I'd love to hear your comments on anything you'd like to hear more about in regards to people being their own medicine. I have lots of ideas. I'm open to hearing what inspires people because honestly, that's my intention of this show. So enjoy the episode. Um, I thought we would just start, like I shared before we started the recording, that we would just start with sharing a little bit about where we're at and how we ended up where we're at as far as decision making. So I'm in Yuma, Arizona, staying at a place called Mitri Lake, and it's dispersed camping, so no utilities really. Beautiful though, mountains around, a big lake, as the name suggests. On the other side of me, and funny story, the Colorado River. Um, I was taking a walk a handful of days ago, and I asked somebody that was passing by if they knew anything about that water, had anybody swam in it, because I was thinking about swimming. And he goes, "Well, I've never seen anybody swim in it." And I said, "Well, it's not sewer water, is it?" And he said, "No, it's the Colorado River." I said, "Oh, okay." Having spent a great deal of my adult life very close to the Mississippi River, it looked very underwhelming. Is it like a big ditch, like an oversized creek or something? It does get larger as it goes, but at the point that I was at, I'm like, it doesn't look like a river. Are you sure? um. Anyway, yeah, so that was my fun story. As far as how I landed in this situation, um, I, uh, well, how much do I want to share? Um, I, I had intentions of living this kind of camping life, traveling for a couple of years probably now, and really longer, but a couple of years where I was serious about it. And the short version of a much longer story is I decided, heck with it, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to wait for things to be perfect because they never will be. And now is perfect. Now is perfect. So I went for it. And it's definitely been a learning journey to bounce off of something that was said before we hit record. Um, I am sitting here in we'll call it like a gravel parking lot. Behind me, though, is just beautiful, and there's other areas that are even prettier, but then I would be squinting at you the whole time. Um, and my desk is a cooler with a footstool and a lap desk on all piled on top of each other, and I'm sitting in a camp chair. And I love
Me
the
too.
vibe, like the nature, the surroundings. Just it feels like home. Just the connection. So with that said, tell me about where you're at because you've also got some very pretty background happening.
Yeah, very similar situation. I've wanted, I was in the corporate world for 25 years and I got to, my dream job was like I want to be a district manager for whatever reason that was my goal. And I got to that very early. And I was like, maybe it's just the company. It wasn't as fulfilling and rewarding. So then I jumped ship and I got another job as a district manager for a different company. And I thought, this isn't it. I thought being a district manager meant I would have more freedom, I would have more autonomy, I'd be able to, make my own schedule. And while I did have that, it wasn't I still felt trapped. And I thought, what do I want? I want my freedom. I want the ability to travel and be wherever I want, whenever I want, and still somehow make money. So I started thinking, how do I create that life? And I worked backwards, and it was like, okay, I need a remote job, I need internet, I need the things. And so I started weaseling my way out of the corporate world and environment and learning skills and taking on new projects, and finally got to a place where it's good and I can be free. And right now, in St. Louis at home, it's 3 degrees and it's in the middle of a blizzard. There's a snowstorm hitting the whole half of the United States. And I was gonna go home yesterday and I was like, oh, that looks like a hurricane of winter. That's a winter hurricane. I'm not going home. I don't want to be anywhere near that. I went to Orlando for an event for podcasters, and I thought, I'm just going to stay in Florida where it's 75 to 80 and sunny and beautiful. It's 70 now. It's high 60s, low 70s today. So it's because the sun's not out. I blame the winter storm. Uh, but I just decided I'm just going to stay in Florida until whatever that hurricane looking thing is gone. And so I'm at a place right now. It's called Jenny Springs, and it's northern Florida, so it's not in the southern areas where it's like super super warm. They're having an actual like heat wave right now while the rest of the world is in a state of emergency because of the ice storm. Jenny Springs is a beautiful campground, and I've stayed here a lot. We do a lot of mermaiding things here. We mermaid here around November. There's a big event, and we all play in the springs because the water's beautiful and crystal clear, so you can get really good underwater mermaid content. And so I was like, I missed out this past November's event because my cat was passing and I didn't want to leave him, and you can't have animals here. So I didn't come to the event. And since I was in Florida, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go now. There's like 8 different springs, and it's just really beautiful. And I just, as long as people are respectful when they come here, there's a lot of teenagers. I see a lot of drinking and just trash and garbage. And I usually don't advertise where I'm at when I'm in the springs because I don't want it to be overflown, overcrowded with people who don't know how to be respectful of the land. So usually if I post pictures, I won't ever tag the place just because I want to stay beautiful and people don't know how to do things. But I am in Jenny Springs. I feel like our listeners would be nice, decent humans that pick up their trash and clean up after themselves and won't make a big mess. So um it's really beautiful, but it's not a quiet campground. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of activity. So there's a lot going on any given time. I don't know if you can hear, there's like music over there, there's people talking over here, the crows are going great. There's a boat behind me.
I
Like
do see the boat. I can't hear the other things.
the river, there's a tube loop. So you can take the tube all the way, like you walk up to the trail up that way with your inner tubes, your boats, your kayaks. Like I have a blow up kayak that I take, and you just float down the river and then walk back. It's just a big circle. It's like a 2 mile, 2.5 miles, something like that down the river. You just go and come back. So
Nice. That sounds
yeah,
fun.
it's
I
a
haven't
really it's a
tubed
really
in a
nice place.
long time.
Yeah, I've been in 3 different campgrounds just kind of traveling. I went to Alexandra, no, Anastasia. I was in Anastasia. I went to Little Talbot. I just left there yesterday. Just cute little campgrounds. Just, I think the hardest thing about boondocking is when or or being a digital nomad basically is, we're in these naturescapes and you want to sit and you want to be with nature and you want to be mindful and peaceful, but then it's like, oh crap, I have to work today. And I keep forgetting to do that. Like there was one moment I was like, I haven't opened my laptop in 3 days. I am really bad at this.
You're living your bliss, and I get that. I've definitely noticed with having, all of the learning curve that goes with this is, oh wow, when was the last time I exercised? When was the last time I brushed my teeth? Like I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna meditate for a while. Gonna make some breakfast. I'm gonna figure out what my idea for, how do I choose to feel today? I start with that before I get out of bed. Um, how do I what is on my to-do list? And usually my to-do list is pretty simple. Um, but because I'm so out of a routine, the even just the basic daily stuff, take doing your shower routine is nothing like it was before. At least that's been my experience. Um, so yeah, I get that. And it's very much about being in the moment, right? And just enjoying. And it's so easy to do when you're in these kind of settings. Um,
Yeah,
so I appreciate
I
you
keep the
sharing
same like
that. Yeah.
daytime nighttime routine. Like my daytime nighttime routine is pretty much the same regardless of whether I'm in a tent or not. The problem is like I've been in new places. So when I go to new places, I want to explore. I want to learn,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, there's a hiking trail. Ooh, a piece of candy, It's just like you see all these things. And so I spent all day yesterday. I was like, oh, it's 75. It's cool to go play at the beach. And so I played at the beach and then I woke up, I went hiking that morning and then I was at the beach all night and then I drove to another campground and then it was like, I don't remember the last time I did any actual work was. Because when we're used to, I'm used to being in a campground and disconnecting, you know. Um, I've gone camping my entire life and that's the problem that I'm is we go to camp to get away from the corporate life, to take a break from your normal standard life. And so getting out of that mindset that this is a break from that and trying to
Right,
blend the two together, like, no, this is that now. Like this is what I wanted. Now I have
right.
to make it work. So it's just being mindful, like, and the showering is I still have my nighttime routine, but the other night I was gonna shower and it was like 50, and I'm like, mm-mm.
No.
No, we're gonna shower in the morning. It's fine. I'll wait till the sun comes out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I totally feel what you're saying, trying to blend the two together because that's the same thing, in this mindset of like I'm on a permanent vacation. Oh wait, I probably need to be doing some things.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, getting back, like, and figuring out how to make those two together with also still very much enjoying what you're doing, right? Like, oh, it's time for work, but like no, like I chose this life. This is what I want to do. Um, and this morning, that to tell on myself a little bit, I was like, oh, today's my chance to talk with Layla for the podcast. Great. 10 a.m. I got plenty of time. And then my brain went, are you sure that's the right time zone? Oh yeah, time zones. Oh no, it's not 9 a.m. Shoot. Okay. Well, how am I gonna do this? And like start figuring out where my studio is gonna be. And I could make it really easy on myself and just have my studio be inside of my camper and have it always in the same spot. But then I'm missing out on all this.
Right, but then you're
And
inside and you're not outside, like the whole point. Like this
exactly,
is a
like, why would I
beautiful,
do
I
that?
love my office. This is an
Yeah,
amazing office. I was in
exactly.
Hawaii a month ago and I found this beautiful like mangrove tree and this nice shade and the ocean is absolutely gorgeous. And I sat there and a lady walked by and she goes, "Oh, that sucks that you have to work from the beach." And I was like, "Does it though?" I was like, "Yeah, I have 4 hours worth of work to do, but I also get to do that work here."
Right.
So it sucks I have to work, yeah, but it also is kind of awesome that I can do the work from here.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I was going to have signal on the beach or if I was going to have to go to my car and use the Wi-Fi there. And luckily I had enough service that I could just sit on the beach under the tree and it was magical. And I'm like, this is what I do. This is what I wanted. This is goals. This was my goals. These were my life goals.
Yeah. Well, and it's all about perspective, right? Like her perspective was, "Oh, you poor thing." And you're like, "No, I mean, I'm over here living the life."
Yeah. It's like,
Um,
oh, you have to work while you're on vacation. And I'm like, no, my work is my vacation.
nice. I like that quote. My work is my vacation.
Yeah.
So speaking of perspectives, I think that's a good point to dive into what you came to share as far as where in your life did you have an experience that you were able to heal from?
Oh, so many. I could write a book. I'm actually writing a book.
Awesome. Awesome.
um, which is kind of funny because that's how we met, as writing a book together. But yeah, the most I would say the most present one that I've been dealing with lately has been self-worth. Um, for the longest time, I was bullied in school. I was raised poor. We didn't have money, so I was a poor kid in a private school. So everybody bullied me and they made me think, I was less than. And into my adult life, that's led to me directly tying my self-worth to my net worth. And I had a moment, a friend of mine invited me to this quantum expansion program that he's a founding member of. And it was a moment where I'm reading through this invitation and it's like, yeah, we're going to live in this mansion in Miami for 4 days and we're going to do breath work and healing sessions and meditations. But this is a mastermind. And, it's a list of all these like famous sports players and TV star. Like there's famous people in this house. And it's like, this is a mastermind and we're all going to come together and join our energies. And it's like, what can you bring to the table? And I started bawling because I felt so out of my element because I'm like, what do I have to offer a house full of millionaires? It's 15 to 30 people that are all that have a very high net worth. And I start thinking their self, their net worth doesn't make them better than me. And that was something that I had been indoctrined to believe as a small child, always growing up. My mom always said, well, people look at us differently and people would give us hand-me-downs and look down at us because of it. And so I believe that our self-worth was directly tied to our net worth. And I tried for so long to build a career and make a bunch of money and do the hustle game in the corporate world because I felt like the more money in my bank account, the more successful and fulfilling my life was. And then as I got older, I realized that's not really what's true. What's the actual definition of wealth is happiness and abundance. And abundance isn't just financial abundance, it's opportunities, it's people, it's places, it's experiences. So I'm
Sitting on the
wealthy,
beach doing your
even
work.
if my bank account, yeah, yeah, I am so wealthy, even if my bank account doesn't necessarily reflect other people's versions of wealth. And so, and I bring this story of the millionaire retreat or whatever because this was just like 2 days ago, where I'm sitting here crying because I'm thinking I don't have anything to offer a group of millionaires. And I dissected it and I realized they they started somewhere. They're just people, just because they have more money. Like I don't think I'm better than somebody because I have more money in my bank account. Why do I assume that everybody I meet thinks the same thing? Like they probably don't think they're better than me because they have more money than me. There's probably a good chance I do have something to offer. I have so many life experiences and I'm humbled by that. And it was just a very, very different perspective to think
Yeah.
that I don't have anything to offer a house full of millionaires. Yeah, I do. I have just as much to offer that they do. And the fact that I didn't feel worthy to be in a room of these with these people is wrong.
What came up for me as you were speaking was um, even the fact that you recognized, like you had the experience with, I'm going to hustle and work really hard and make lots of money, and realize you didn't enjoy it, and um, that happiness doesn't come from those things. And true or not true, I don't know the group of people you're dealing with and how much they love their life, but uh, when if you are a person, and I've heard this story a lot of times, people who are extremely wealthy, when you are a person who um, it has all of their happiness tied up in external circumstances, then when those things pass, and they do, even if even if you to your dying day have tons of money, doesn't mean you're going to be happy. Um, One of the interesting things that I've heard as far as money mindset is that people who are at the very top, so like the Bill Gates people of the world, and people who are at the very bottom, like what you were describing, some of your stories with life of, hand me downs and people look down on us and that kind of thing, like tend to have the same money mindset. It's that there's not enough and I'm worried about losing it. So even though they've got more than they could possibly ever do with for their life and many lives after that, they're still like, oh my God, how do I get more? What happens if I lose it? So the mindsets ironically are quite similar because they've like on the one end of the spectrum, like, okay, I'm just trying to get through the day. I want to make sure I have food on the table. And on the other end, like, oh, this, if I lose this, then I won't be happy anymore. But they're not happy because they're constantly worried about losing. And so, even just the fact that you've already recognized that having a bunch of money doesn't make me worthwhile is a big thing to offer potentially, depending on where these people are. Um, that's my perspective on the situation. Um, so, would you be willing to share a little bit more about how you shifted that mindset where you started out with, crying, I'm not good enough for this task, to no, I'm worthy.
So the invitation that you've accomplished extraordinary things and you know there's more for you out there. And that was the part that triggered me. Because I was like, I haven't accomplished extraordinary things. I don't have millions of dollars, and how can I compete with that? And then there was a story. I've talked, obviously, I've intermingled with people who have a pile of money and they're still not happy. And they think, so imagine you have all the money on the planet. You buy all the cars and the fancy things. At some point you get bored with that. And you're like, okay, I can have whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want. Like so many people say, if money was an option, what would you do? Oh, I'm going to sit on the beach and drink margaritas. You can only do that so long before you're
Right.
like,
Now what?
okay, now what? Yeah. So you just have that vision in your head that you're like, this is what I want. This is the end game. And then you get there and you're like, okay, what's next? And and that's kind of where this is going because that was where a lot of the mindset from. Sorry, there's a cart driving, so I don't want that in the background. Um,
Thank you.
but the mindset of these people is, okay, I've accomplished these things. Now what? And they realize it's not an external factor. You can't buy your happiness. Money is people think they want money and they worship money and they put money on this pedestal and money is not what they want indefinitely. Money's a tool. Money
Yes.
shouldn't be any more beneficial or pedestaled than a shovel or a hammer. It's a tool to
Yeah.
get what you want. You think
Yeah.
about what it is that you actually want. And what I wanted was freedom. And the corporate money I was making wasn't paying for my freedom. So that was the biggest perspective shift. Then in a couple days ago, realizing that that phrase that triggered me was also the phrase that released me because it was, you've done extraordinary things and you know there's more out there. And at first, I didn't think I'd done anything extraordinary because I didn't make $1 million doing it. But you know what? I've built up my own wealth. I've built what I think is my definition of wealth. To me, that's extraordinary. Whose definition of extraordinary am I going by, and why do I think it's somebody else's? And
Yeah.
that
It's
was,
my
it
life.
was,
Why would I want to live it according to somebody else's way of doing things? Yeah.
yeah. I think I've done some extraordinary things. I think I've overcame so many extraordinary situations and obstacles. And the fact that I let my definition of somebody else's definition override my own definition. You know, when I reread that from a different perspective, it's like I have done extraordinary things. I do have every right to be here. I wouldn't have been invited if the person that sent me the invitation didn't think I had something to offer these people because they're not trying to look stupid and be like, I brought this nobody here. Like they wouldn't have done that. So, you know, why I'm projecting my insecurities on strangers and assuming that that's their opinion and that's their idea. And so many times when we try to think in other people's brains, we're wrong. You know,
Yes.
I've met so many people that I'm like, oh, you're gorgeous. You're probably a super bitch or, you know, whatever, if you don't want me to cuss. And then I
No,
meet
no,
them and
you're
they're like
fine.
the nicest people ever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't be that pretty and nice. You know, I wanted you to be mean. But it's us projecting our thoughts and opinions on other people's, and we're so wrong. How many times have you avoided having a difficult conversation with someone because you thought they were going to react poorly or in a manner that you didn't want? And you're like, hey, this is really hard for me to have this conversation. You stressed about it, you thought about it, you drove yourself crazy for weeks or days or whatever thinking about it. And then finally you're like, okay, I'm just going to go do it. And they're like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. And then you're like, that's it? Like,
Where's the
because
drama?
yeah, you had yourself convinced that they were going to say or do or think something completely different. And you couldn't have been further from the truth. And they were actually happy that you brought this to them and more than willing to be accommodating. And so trying to get out of other people's heads and stay in my own. You know, is this something, do I feel I have value? Do I feel I've overcame something extraordinary? Do I think there's more out there? And that's the thing, is it's a bunch of people who are looking for external validation. They're not looking for external sources of happiness. They're ready to move within. And this
Yes.
is a quantum expansion. You don't quantum expand by buying things or having
Right.
material possessions. You quantum expand it internally.
Right.
And
Or
and
by listening to the
realizing,
same perspective that you've always had, because if that was working for you, you wouldn't be going to seek it somewhere else.
right, right.
Um,
So I think that was the shift, is just getting out of other people's mindsets, getting out of other people's heads, because 90% of the times we're wrong anyway. So stop that.
yeah, I love that. And what I took away from what you're saying, you mentioned that your big value for making all these new life decisions is related to freedom. And I think in terms of tying that in with what you said about the validation, looking for that external validation, that true freedom is creating your own happiness from within. Even if your circumstances, like you described the story of sitting on the beach, you could have been like, oh yeah, poor me, I'm sitting here, have to do work instead of playing in the sand or whatever. um but you say, you know what, I'm choosing this. I'm thankful, I'm grateful that I get to have this experience. So we're only ever creating our own happiness and or misery. Because even if you do have that tough conversation, and like you said, most of the time it goes a lot easier than you think it's going to, but even if it doesn't, that person is creating that experience. How do you want to show up for that? you know um Even, and I wound up clipping that chunk out of the video, but just to give a quick reference for those that don't get to see that, but the interaction that I had with the gentleman this morning, like, okay, he's obviously got a certain agenda in mind. How can I show up for this? How can I choose to be the person I want to be right now, regardless of how he feels about it? How do I choose to feel? um so yeah, that to me, I same thing, like my reasoning for choosing this lifestyle was freedom. And there's lots of times where I feel extremely free as far as my surroundings, and then other times where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is happening or that's happening. The wind is blowing my solar panel down, or something fell off on my camper, or whatever the case may be. It's um can I still choose to be present with this moment and be like, okay, I'm not going to attach myself to this because then I'm definitely not free and I'm not free to make a choice that lends itself to making a better decision to get through that situation. Um so I love what you're saying as far as recognizing it's not about external validation. Um and very much about shifting your thoughts, right? And how what a huge ripple effect that has on your life. And potentially on the lives of those around you, right? Because you come into the situation with a different energy. Um, so I'm wondering now that you've had this mind mindset shift about this upcoming retreat opportunity, um, have you given any thought to what you will share?
Um, no, no, because I don't want to put any weird expectations on anything. I just want to kind of let whatever happens happen organically, and whatever needs to be said or shared at the time will manifest itself. Something that you said about being present and deciding how you show up in the moment. I've been trying this fun thing lately.
1 second. Not right now. It depends on where you're going. That way. Yuma's closer. That way. Okay, go ahead.
Um, where was I?
Sorry. Um,
You were talking about being present,
present.
and being present in the moment and deciding how you want to show up, um, in certain situations. And something I've been learning lately is this phrase that's I almost want to say has changed my life. It sounds so cliche, but it's, oh, what a gift. And it pissed me off at first because, um, so just a little bit of personal history. The week of Thanksgiving, I left a 15-year partnership, and there's been a lot of triggers and things that have shown up. And instead of getting angry or frustrated or mad or vengeful or whatever, I take a breath and I say, oh, what a gift. And as frustrating and aggravating as that was for a lot of the situation, taking that moment and saying, this is a gift. This is showing me a trigger. This is showing me a wound. This is showing me something I have to heal. This is showing me something about me that I need to learn, that I want to learn, I want to go deeper in. So anytime you're triggered or angry or something and you stop and you say, "Oh, what a gift." Um, it's hard at first. It was for me at least. But now I appreciate it. And now it's almost second nature. And because I can think, oh, what a gift this is, you know? Oh, I have a flat tire. Oh, what a gift. I could have kept driving down the road and hit a deer that killed me or something, you know, like just I think we've covered a lot about perspective and mindset shifts, and you can choose to be a victim, and you can choose to be poor me and sad me and woe is me, or you can choose to be like, thank you for this. This minor inconvenience or major inconvenience or big setback or whatever the perception is is for my highest good. It's for the greater good. It's for my best interest. So anytime I see anything that's slightly inconvenient or aggravating, I think, what a gift. Um, and that's been really hard, but I think it's helped me survive this very tumultuous time in my life. There's been so many emotions and triggers, and the older, unhealed version of me would have done a lot of off the wall things, but the calm, patient version of me who's trying to heal and wants to do better and be better as a human for myself, for my kids, for the planet, for anybody who encounters me, to stop and say, "Oh, what a gift." anytime you feel triggered of any way it's been so life-changing, and it's been a way to keep me out of that victim mindset and poor me mindset, and just no, this is all for my benefit.
Yes. And thank you for sharing. I love that phrase. And it was timely because I was definitely having a moment. um, I use a similar phrase. Mine is, how is this for me? And
Mm.
I don't always do it right in the moment, but usually pretty quickly afterwards. Um, because otherwise we're just creating more suffering for ourselves, right? Like if we're resisting it. Um, I um also use a tool, and the first time I heard it, it was not, it pissed me off.
Mhm.
um is how did it go? Okay, so you start with just like a quick journaling, how am I feeling right now, and you write down whatever, and then you go back through, and it's uh helpful to do it with another person, but it's not necessary. um you look at the feelings. Okay, I'm feeling, let's say for example, I'm feeling angry. um and I love that, because then you're not resisting it. And then you just keep doing that for like 30 seconds to a minute. And if you're doing it with another person, what I experienced was, I felt extremely vulnerable. And that was one of the things that came up. I feel vulnerable and I love that. And every part. And then I said, and I hate that like right afterwards, because I like, oh, I don't love the feeling of feeling vulnerable. And then I went, I feel seen, and I love that. And then I went, I do love that, because it was okay. I'm not pretending to be somebody else. I'm allowing people to see the real deal right now. And as vulnerable as it feels, because maybe they won't like me, um, I like me. I'm being in this present moment with what's happening for me in this present moment. And yeah, so it's a very powerful tool. And that's a great, oh, what a gift. I'm 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 gonna remember that one. And
Yeah, I love Marissa Pierce. She says, "Tell yourself a better lie." I quote that
yes,
all the time. Almost every single client I've ever had has heard me say that at least once. Because if you think about it, oh, I have a flat tire. I'm going to be late for my meeting. I'm going to look so unprofessional. I'm going to miss this deal, and you spiral. It's a downward
yes,
spiral, and you tell
yes.
yourself all of these terrible stories. So if you spiral up, oh, I have a flat tire. It's keeping me from this thing that might have been worse. It's keeping me from this. You know what? This person's going to be here who's going to sabotage this meeting, and I'm not going to be there. And, and it's, you can tell yourself a better lie. If you're going to lie, we recycle. Our thoughts are like 70 to 90% recycled thoughts. We think the same thing over and over and over again. And I want to say it's even like 90% of them are negative. So if you're gonna recycle thoughts and you're gonna lie to yourself, why not lie up, spiral up? Like the opposite of paranoia is pronoia, where you think the world conspires in your favor. And I think we need more
Mm,
of that. Nothing is happening to you, everything is happening for
happening
you.
for you. Yes. And I could get really deep into the science on that, but I won't for the sake of my listeners. But that ties in with another phrase I've used so many times and have watched magic happen literally so many times, having traveled across the country now since October. And the phrase is this: when something happens that is not to my preference, let's say a flat tire, for example, and instead of spinning out like what you just described, the whole like, oh my god, everything's falling apart, um I and I'm thinking, I wonder, so then I asked this question to the universe: how are you going to work this out? How are you going to, I wonder how the universe is going to work this out. And I have watched some miraculous off the chain stuff happen as a result of that. Um so yes, very much so. Like, you can either see, I was reading New Earth last night by Eckhart Tolle, and he gives an example of, let's see, what was that story? um You can either, so there's three ways that you can meet the universe. You can either meet it as a friend, an enemy, and I forget what the third one was, but you get the idea. Um, and in those moments, choose to see how is it for you, you know, like you said. And um, even if it's just for your personal growth, like, okay, now I know how to handle this situation. Um, now I know I can stand up and speak my truth without whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. So even, you know, leading that back to your original story of you got triggered when you were invited to this retreat, and the phrase was, you know, I forget what you said, something about be extraordinary.
It was you're a person who's done something extraordinary and you know there's more for you out there.
Yes. And so when you got triggered, then, oh, what a gift, right? Now you've looked at that and gone, oh, I was still comparing myself to other people's idea of abundance. I was still trying to make myself fit into a box that I already know I don't belong in. Um, and so it was a great opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Um, are there any other thoughts you would like to share in regards to shifting mindset?
Hold on, there's a speedboat.
I'm not hearing any of the stuff in your background. I don't know if you're hearing my stuff.
That thing's so loud I can barely hear you over that. Crazy that you don't hear that. I've got music on both sides of me and then the boat.
Well,
Um,
some technical device is doing a great job of filtering all things.
yeah, yeah, amazing. I would say the last, there's another one. Hold on.
Sure.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. There's no more boats for a minute. I would say the last the last thing I want to say about this topic is really that feeling of not belonging, that feeling of not fitting in. It it triggered that childhood wound of mine of where I don't belong. I don't belong in rooms with millionaires because I'm not a millionaire. And and that feeling of just inadequacy, um, not enoughness, and just being shrunk down. I realized that, you know, one of the reasons I left my relationship after 15 years is because I was shrinking myself to fit somebody else's narrative and idea of who I am and who I should be and what my life should look like. And I vowed that I was never going to shrink myself to fit in somebody else's box ever again. And when I felt like I didn't belong in those rooms, it was old patterns of me shrinking myself to fit in a box that I don't belong in. Only it was my own limiting beliefs. It was my own box. I was trying to put me in a box and say, I don't belong in these rooms. I don't belong in these places. Says who? Who? You know,
Says
maybe
you,
all of these
according to
millions.
you. Yeah.
It was me. But
Yeah.
maybe all these millionaires in this room, they want a fresh perspective. They want someone who's still in the rough to give them that perspective, someone who's still crawling from the bottom on and making their way up, who hasn't just been, because some of them have been at the top for a while. So having that real raw, rough, like grit perspective might be what they need to remember who they really are. Because, you know, sometimes you forget, you get wealthy and you hang out with all these other wealthy for a version of you. And not only did I remind myself who I am and how I want to show up in the world, regardless of what other people think of me, it's what I think of me. And I'm not in a box. I belong in any room I'm in, um, regardless of other people's thoughts and opinions. So it's really a matter of being true to yourself, like you said, being authentic and worrying that other people aren't going to like you, well, do you want to build fake relationships off a version of you that you're not really? Or do
That
you
you
want to
have to
build
keep showing up as this pretend person.
yeah, we call it the representative. You know, the representative that you meet on a first date or a job interview. That's not the real version of you. That's the person that you want to portray to get whatever it is that you want. When you show up as yourself, as the authentic version of you, you form real relationships and real bonds because people are interested in being with you for who you are. And so being real and raw and honest with yourself about who the real version of you is, how you show up, not just for others, but how you show up for yourself and and just remember that. Like I love the remember who the F you are. Like, yes, like that is such a powerful phrase that I think it's overused and not really understood as much because I think coming back to yourself and going through an awakening or a healing is really just remembering who you are.
Yeah, 100%. And in everything you just said, coming back to true freedom is stepping into just loving yourself unconditionally. Like, regardless of what anybody else thinks or says or responds or whatever, like, can I love myself? This other person doesn't necessarily like me. Do I like me? Um, that's the true definition of freedom, right? Because in any given case, life is going to throw life stuff at you, the interruptions, the inconveniences, the challenges. Um, how do I show up? How do I show up? So I'm curious, and this is an idea I told you I would share once we got into the recording. I have encountered quite a few women in my travels who are finding that freedom within, overcoming as a result of their travels and the challenges that it presents. Um, and my idea is to have some type of maybe online gathering. Um, I I don't have specifics yet, but right now I'm just feeling into would other women enjoy having a community of travelers who are on a similar medicine path of overcoming all of the boxes that we've put ourselves in. um
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us that are on similar journeys, you know. I'm in a couple different like female nomad groups or, you know, female camper van groups or whatever. And they're not all necessarily on the same journey. Some of them are doing it because they have to. Some of them can't afford rent or are going through a divorce and don't have any other option. But I think the ones, people like us who are doing it on purpose, who are like, you know, they want their freedom, they want their autonomy, their authenticity, their um, the nature and their healing. I think I would love to be a part of a community full of women that are going through the same things because we can share again, me and you have so many similarities in our paths and our journeys. And that's why I bring up like a flat tire or something, because most of our issues are technical. It's either car related or equipment related.
yes, yes.
So
Or just the even like you said, some of the emotional triggers from having left a long-term relationship and realizing, oh, I've got some stuff inside to deal with. And, some of that kind of stuff, the emotional stuff that bubbles up. I can't show up like this because I'm feeling so lonely or sad about whatever, and finding yourself in a situation where you're spending a lot of time alone, even though you can still interact with others. Most of your time is spent alone, and it's like, oh, well, there's plenty of time to process those thought patterns that have gotten stuck and saying, oh yeah, okay, is that actually true? Um, so yeah, there's the technical side of things and the inconveniences related to mechanics. But then there's all the emotional, oh my gosh, I've got stuff to deal with.
yeah. Well, and it's
um,
hard because like you said, it's very lonely. And sometimes it's hard to be alone and not feel alone. like those creepy thoughts of, oh, I'm alone. Um, I don't see them as being bad anymore. At first it was like, oh, I'm alone. I'm really alone. Like I'm in the wilderness. What if Bigfoot's over there? What if there's a gator coming out of this creek? I'm in Florida. There's all kinds of stuff. Like, um, and you hear all the urban legends and things, and you're like, what if they're true? And I'm out here all alone by myself. And sometimes it can be scary. And then sometimes it's empowering because I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
I
Oh, what a
think,
gift.
yeah, am I alone? Yeah. Am I kind of scared sometimes? But would I rather be alone or have somebody else here? I would rather be slightly scared and alone than have somebody else that I have to maintain.
Yeah. And and also looking at the feeling of the fear or the loneliness instead of becoming it, like, oh, I
Mhm.
see you there. That's not me. It's a feeling I'm having, and
Yeah.
let it go.
What
And
a gift.
oh, what a gift. How is this for me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to stop the recording here. Uh, Thank you, everybody, for listening. If this stuff
Yeah.
encourages you, please subscribe.
Thank
Yeah.
you for inviting me. This has been a beautiful conversation, and I'm so happy and grateful and thankful for you inviting me today.
Awesome. Me too.